Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Wrestling Diaries. I have a really awesome guest today. Before we get started, though, on the podcast show for the average Joe, I just want to let everybody know, if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, the Wrestling Diaries, stop what you're doing, put down the coffee, stop playing with your dog, and go click that button. It's, if you're watching this on YouTube right now, it's down here, it's somewhere, or maybe it's up there. I don't know. Click it. And then also follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Pocket Cast, Google Podcast, and we're on like a plethora of other platforms. Look us up, The Wrestling Diaries. You can listen to us on your way to work or on a beach trip or traveling or doing whatever. It's really cool. We got people from the local community coming in, talking about what they're wrestling with and all these other awesome things. They call me the Joe Rogan for the average Joe. So find out if that is accurate or not. Today, I have the lovely Betsy Bilhorn, which was my teacher, my team leader in the London Real Business Accelerator program. And she also is the owner of digiPonies. Betsy, thank you for being on.
Hello.
Did you like that introduction? Did it sound professional?
I did. Yes, very professional.
Kind of messed up there a minute.
You learned something in 8 weeks, so there you go.
Yes. So tell us, what is digiPonies? I know a lot of people are like, what is that? It's like a robotic horse.
Yeah. So digiPonies, I'm actually building it right now. So it's not out right now, but it's a mobile app. It's a mobile gaming app for preteen and teen girls and, young girls, ladies at heart. But so the inspiration for it was, if you do anything with horse games, right, which most girls, horse crazy girls do, you have to do a lot of work to be able to even create your own horse. And we call that in the gaming parlance grinding. And so I thought, let me take out all that crap and let's just get a good part where you can generate and create unique digital ponies. You can collect them, you can breed them, and then you can order merchandise featuring your own unique pony within the app, right? So
that's super cool. So it's like a game where you have like horses and you can just like breed them.
You just breed them. We'll use the word breeding, but for preteen girls, that's not appropriate. We'll create new ones.
Why does it?
Just a little kiss in a cloud.
Right. So it's just for preteen girls. What about like
preteen and teen girls?
A young adult male like myself. I can't get on.
If you're down with that, sure. It's open to all comers, but when we talk about a target audience, I'm not sure that 18 to 35-year-old dudes is going to want to play digiPonies.
Well, see, me and my friend Matt here. No, I'm kidding.
Well, hey, whatever floats your boat, and it's open to everybody. But on the business plan, I'm hoping that if digiPonies breaks out and does extremely well, then on the roadmap in the next couple 3 years could be digi dragons for the boys, because that definitely, when I did market research, and then somebody else had recommended digimonsters and digidogs. So there's a
digimonsters. Well, there's that wasn't that anime cartoon or like brand Digimon. That's Digimon.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a little too close.
When I first had seen that you had digiPonies, that's the first thing I thought of was Digimon. I was like, oh, so this lady must be Japanese.
No.
And she's totally not Japanese. At least I don't think so. You might be Japanese. I don't know.
No, but fun fact, I'm super into anime. So
are you? What's your favorite anime? We got to stop right now.
Okay, there's so many, but
okay, we'll just name off one that.
First one. Well, it was the first one that actually got me really started was Akira. That movie.
Akira, yes.
Yes, and that was like
nice. Good choice.
The movie, right? And but yeah, I'm a pretty big anime junkie, so
Yeah, mine is going to be, I think, a coin flip between Spirited Away and Princess Mononoke.
Yes. Yeah.
And they're both by Studio Ghibli or whatever. I think it might edge out first. The first time I ever saw Spirited Away, I was actually dating a girl who was very, 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 very into anime, and she was coming over for a date night with me, and we were going to watch Spirited Away. And I was like, yeah, are you going to come over so we can watch the movie? And she goes, honey. So she goes, honey, that's not a movie. That's a work of art. That's what she said to me.
And how did that day go for you?
Dang.
Wow.
She gave me some sugar.
There you go. Even after that.
Yeah, I love anime, but that's cool. So what made you want to do digiPonies? What's the fire behind that?
Well, so I have been in the tech industry for 25 years, both as a software engineer and moved up the ranks and was a senior executive at tech startups in charge of product strategy and marketing. So which was great, and I had very successful career. But here was the thing. I wanted to build something for me, right? It's one thing when you're building something for somebody else and the founder and the investors, right? They get all the money from it. And, I'm not to say that I didn't get money from it, but not, it wasn't mine. And so I had this idea about 18 months ago. I took a class at MIT on blockchain technologies, which we won't geek out on that, but part of the homework at the end, for it was a pass-fail class, was you had to submit a business plan for a blockchain-based app. And so I came up with this idea of digiPonies, and so I submitted that and I passed, thank God. But I had some people interested in it, and I thought, well, I think this is it. And I was doing something else, and I was doing very well at that company, and I was very happy there. So I was like, well, and it was kind of one of those things you just kept on the shelf. And then finally, I was like, it's kind of now or never if I don't do this. So it was the right time. I had enough money, socked away for a couple of years, and why not do it? So I left last year, took 3 months off, took a break, and then started the company in January. So I've been designing and coding the app ever since. So hoping to have something launched here in the fall.
That's really cool. So if anybody's watching out there that finds that interesting, and I feel like a lot of girls would, because every girl within the age range that you just named off that I know personally or know of, they all love ponies. They love horses. Even if they've never rode before, they have the toys, or they want to go to the petting zoos and stuff like that. So I feel like a lot of young girls would love that. So. You were my team leader, and well, mine as well as a group of other miscreants.
Yep. Yes, we had it was a cool team though, because everybody gelled. Yeah, it was kind of one of those once in a lifetime
I nicknamed
deals.
us behind closed doors. I nicknamed us the X-Men because we're a bunch of freaks.
Oh, well, I guess I did not choose well
so I
chose my team. Yeah,
I gotta be careful. Some of them are going to be like, I can't believe he's saying this about us. Anyways, real quick, so everybody's wondering, London Real, which is done by or created by this gentleman named Brian Rose, who basically has one of the top podcasts in the world. It's definitely ranked up there. Not as good as Joe Rogan, but he has this business academy course where he helps people learn how to develop the tools and strategies to create their own business online, because that's where commerce is going, right? E-commerce is the way of the future. We're getting out of the industrial age into the information age. And so everybody they should get on this train. There's so much money in it. And so Betsy she's a team leader for that course, and she helps. They group these people together in these teams, and you each week you're learning different things, and she kind of mentors us and leads us to the promised land. So tell us what you can about that without giving out too much information, because I know that I don't want Brian to put a hit out on you.
Well, yeah. So I'll it's so basically, and I wrote a review of this on Medium, but the way I look at it is, and Brian's even said that this is really kind of a fear accelerator. So in 8 weeks, you're going to go from, I don't know what I want to do, or maybe you kind of, I think I want to do this thing. And it really pushes you every week to actually have a tangible result, right? So it layers on each other. So you go from your business idea to you're making a landing page to test it, social media, and so on and so forth. So by the end, you're actually getting out there live, inviting people to come to a webinar and hopefully sell your product, your digital product that you created. The thing that's really great about it is, one, I think there's a huge amount of personal growth that happens through those 8 weeks. I took the class myself because I wanted to learn more about consumer marketing and digitization, even though I had a background on the enterprise and B2B side. So, but there were a lot of neuroses, you have to face them right away, right? So the first week, you remember what was the first week in module 0, you had to write record 10 vlogs in 10 days and post them on your public social media, which, for everybody is like, and for me, that was, probably I would say for 20 years, because I went to my sister's wedding and the photographer's like, yeah, you do look like, and that was it.
What?
And I never wanted to have a photo or a video of me taken ever again. And it was like
what
pulling
an
teeth.
ass.
No, oh yeah, no, like for real. And
Jeez
so for 20
Louise.
years, so when I would have to have professional headshots done for work, it was like this big production. Right? I had to take 100 pictures, and then I would be like, hand it off to the marketing person, be like, pick one, and so you can imagine for me when I took the class, and I'm like, holy, I have to do video, I have to put this on my social media, and I have to do it 10 times, and now I'm at the point where I'm on your show. I have a YouTube show I do every week, right? I could care less about being on camera or having my photo taken at this point. So for me, that was one of my bigger personal challenges to get over. But, as a coach, you watch everybody has different struggles. So you're really, any kind of, neurotic thing or blockage that you have is going to be like, boom, right up in your face, and you're going to have to face it in 8 weeks and deal with it. But the other thing on the product side, and this is what I spend a lot of time in the Medium review, is, I've been a product executive for a long time. I've brought really successful products to market. And the thing that I like about this framework is it's very practical and hands-on. So, you're really going out there with your idea and you're testing it, and you're going to find out pretty quick if it's going to work or not, right? So you're not wasting all the money. So I would say if anybody's watching this that's a wannabe tech entrepreneur or any kind of product entrepreneur, I would definitely take this class, because the one thing you're going to find out at the end of the class is, one, if you have the backbone to kind of face your personal demons and get through them in 8 weeks, because there's a lot to being an entrepreneur, and it's not just like building something and hoping everybody will buy it. And then the second thing is you're going to really market test that idea, right? So you're going to find out if your idea is bombed or not. And so, and that's just a valuable thing to do before you start going and getting, funding from somebody else, or spending, tens of thousands of your own hard-earned money to build something only to find out that, it's crap or nobody wants it, right? So, money well spent there. So that's, essentially, that's my version of the Business Accelerator. Sorry, Brian, if you, that's not the best advertisement, but I will say too, the team aspect of it, right, and working through problems and really being challenged every week, and then the sense of accomplishment that you have when you get to the end of it. It's like, oh my God, I did that, right? You just get a huge feeling of confidence at the end. So yeah, I think it's a great course. Whether or not anybody decides to, there's people who go on and have very successful businesses from that, and there are people who, they don't. I don't know exactly. There's always a percentage of people who don't, kind of move on. But I think the personal growth alone from it is tremendous. Right?
Yes, 100%. It gets you uncomfortable. It makes you do things you've never done before. It focuses you, or it makes you focused and makes you more accountable for the actions of things you're doing.
Yeah.
And for me, just the network that it puts you into. Like, yes. I know you, we talk, like we trade ideas. You sent me some really good information about my podcast brand. Yep. And other people, like, it creates this huge network. And it's like Brian said that your network is your net worth. Before he said that quote on like the very last week of our academy, that was already like in my head. I knew that, like, networking. It's about, like, I hate it's a cheesy, corny like saying, but the whole, like, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. That's like a real thing. It's a real thing. I used to work at. I was the manager at a doctor's office. I should have had a bachelor's degree and 2 years of experience doing that. Didn't have either. And I was there because I knew somebody. I had connections, I made the right friends, somebody liked me or whatever, And so for me, just the networking aspect is huge, right? I interviewed a wonderful young lady named Suzanne a couple days ago from Manchester, England. And she's wonderful, and she has a really awesome business, and she's a yogi, and she's super cool, and she does theater, and she does ballet, and she's so interesting. And we're pals, we're friends. And she lives in England. And so the connections I've made, even if it wasn't from like a business networking standpoint, just the friendships I made, because I love making new friends and meeting people and getting submerged in culture, And so for me, I feel like that's worth its weight in gold. with that being said, that was a hell of a sell by you for the Business Academy thing.
Well, yeah.
They need to cut you a big check. Do you get a commission?
I do. I would no.
Send her a check.
I don't. No, but I mean, and honestly,
send her a check, Brian.
Yeah. But it was funny because this is the God honest truth. I was talking with some colleague the other day, and I was saying that I've sent people to product management classes, right? And I'm not going to name them because then I will get my butt shot off. But I've spent like $7,500 to send somebody to a 4-day class, and they come back and they don't do, pardon my French, but I mean, it doesn't do shit, right? And it's like, it's all this theory. And I was telling this guy, I was like, yeah, man, if I had sent you to this, 8-week class for $3,000, you probably, you would have probably had way more hands-on experience being a product manager. But I think also, living that pain, right? That fear and also different aspects of the business. And this is why I really think it's good for entrepreneurs because, and I'm coaching a class right now, and I just had this conversation with somebody in my current team, but it's like, if you're going to be CEO of your own business, you have to hustle, you have to cold call, you have to know, you got to know how to like put together your website. You have to know a little bit what marketing is all about. You have to know what social media, right? If only the fact that you don't get bullshit. Right. I mean, like, that how to hire the right people when that time comes, or when you're hiring a contractor, what you want. But if you just are like flippy floppy, like build this website, anybody could go to you and be like, all right, $25,000, and you could have literally a piece of crap. And you wouldn't be any of the wiser. Right. So to actually live that whole iteration, that's worth its weight in gold. Right. So, and I would honestly say if you wanted to be a CEO, you should go through this class because, and you have to work with a team, right? You can't do this by yourself. So, I found that the people who are trying to run this solo and they don't interact on the team chat, they don't post to the Facebook group, right? They don't work with anybody, that they tend to be much less successful than the people who kind of tough it out and write it out together. Right. So, yeah.
You need people. You need people, whether you want to admit it or not. You need people to kind of like, build a bridge to where you want to cross over to. It's just the. So what I try, because see, I love people and I love making friends. I mean, I like making enemies too. No, I'm kidding. I don't. But I love meeting people and like connecting with people. And even if they're not at least friends, like acquaintances, colleagues, business associates. But a lot of people aren't built like me. Like I'm just like a social butterfly kind of. But a lot of people aren't. But sometimes somebody told me this once. I went to a networking event here in Birmingham. And he's a buddy of mine. He runs a digital consulting firm here in the state. And he said, "Dude, you just got to fake it till you make it, bro." He's like, "Sometimes that's just what you got to do. Even if you don't want to meet people and get out there, we'll fake it. Pretend like you're in a movie. And if you're in a movie, you're playing a character. That's not your name. You don't really have superpowers, or you're not saving the queen or whatever. But you're pretending to, right? To do the movie. So just pretend that. Just pretend like you're some character in a movie and just do it. And then at the end, when you're sitting on top of a pile of gold, and I mean this metaphorically, not necessarily literally, then you'll be like, oh, well, now if you don't want to like deal with people, then don't worry about it. Just hire a bunch of people to do all your dirty work, right?
Well, it's true. And it's so funny because like you can, I don't even know how to say this, but there's a fake it till you make it aspect, and then there's a part where it just becomes natural, right? So you just keep doing it over and over and over again, and then it's not fake anymore.
Right. I get that. Yeah, that makes sense. You just kind of become that. You become the part, right?
Right, and you can turn, when you can turn that on or off, right? Mm-hmm. So
unless don't do it like Jim Carrey in Man on the Moon, where he had to go through like therapy to convince him that he wasn't Andy Kaufman. Like, Jim, you're not Andy Kaufman. Stop trying to fight Jerry the King Lawler.
Yeah, no, not like that. And you don't want to get to the place where you're so fake, right? I mean, it's freaky when you see, people kind of turn it on and then turn it off, and you're like, oh my God, that's like two different people. But you're right, and I think that I think the part of the problem, and that people struggle with is, and I definitely saw it in the course is, you've got Brian Rose, who's done, how many shows, hundreds and hundreds, right? He does a show a week for the last 9 years, right? And that's not counting Silicon Reel that he has, right? And, everything else that he's done, right? He's done TED Talk and everything else. So, I constantly have to keep telling people, go back and look at the very original episodes, the very first 10 episodes of Brian Rose, and then come back and talk to me, right? Because my grandfather used to say, everybody got to start somewhere, boy. That was everybody would say that all the time. And it's so true, right? And, and you can go on and on with examples. I'll tell a story in tech space. So I was working for a company, and Mark Benioff had founded Salesforce, Salesforce.com. Probably I would say 2 or 3 years prior to us buying. We were one of the first enterprise customers of Salesforce, and we would go to his event called Dreamforce. And at that time, it was in one hotel in 8 rooms in this one hotel. Right now, he has 125,000 people come to San Francisco, and when he does this keynote, it's live streamed to 500,000 people. Right, but I remember Mark Benioff doing one of these keynotes, and he was, he's never going to be known for the most amazing public speaker in the world, but man, it was rough. He was definitely, and so it's just practice over time, right? Everybody, you just don't pop out of this shell and all of a sudden you're Brian Rose, right? Brian Rose started from somewhere. It's just like you said, it's a matter of getting out there and then having positive feedback too, right? For me, when I was so freaked out about doing the videos, and then I put them out, and people were like, "Oh my God, you're such a natural on the camera. Oh my God, you have so much." And I'm like, "Really?" And over the 8 weeks, it got easier and easier and easier for me, and I actually found that I liked it, and I enjoyed it, and and I went and created a YouTube show, right, and talked to all different kinds of horse people. So you can get there. And I'm sure just like people watch the early episodes of your stuff, they're going to watch early episodes of my stuff. And, if we're both breakout famous, next Brian Roses, 9 years from now, it'll probably be even better. So, but I think most people cut themselves off at the knees before they even get started. Right. And that's a big problem.
Well, I don't want to be a Brian Rose because I'm the Joe Rogan.
Well, you're the
average
Joe Rogan. Yeah.
I got that from Tara, by the way. Shout out to Tara.
There we go.
She said that to me on a phone call that we had, and I was so flattered that she said that. Why were you nervous to do the vlogs? For me, that was the easiest thing for me in the Business Academy, doing those vlogs. I love seeing myself on film. I love hearing my voice.
It goes back to, well, this is. We'll go back to the title of your podcast, right? Which is the Wrestling Diaries. And so this is something that I have wrestled with my whole life. So
it wasn't because of what the guy said at the wedding, though, was it? Was it just predicated on that?
It was, I would say that was icing on the cake of growing up with, I was bullied a lot in school because I was the smartest kid in the class. And so, obviously I didn't have my together as a girl, and, you know what nerds look like. And so that was me. And so, nerds are cool now. They were not cool when I was growing up. Right. And especially girl nerds, totally not cool. And so, I had a lot of, I had a dog named Betsy, and people were, oh yeah, for real. I grew up with that, the Betsy Wetsy doll, things like that. And then, I had certain incidents, especially when you're, a teen, and I'm sure this is true regardless if you're, either gender, but, taking pictures and then people kind of being really nasty about it and making comments. So that all starts to add up. And then, you get in your 20s, and then you have the wedding photographer say it, and, you're done, right? At this point, now you've had it for 20 years. And so, then when you are okay, well, maybe I'm going to get over this and I'm going to have my photo taken, I'm going to be fine with it. You're so I was so freaked out about it, to your point of fake it till you make it, but it was going to the extreme. And so I was okay, I'm going to smile in this photo. right? And it was horrible. And then I would get these pictures. I'd be like, oh my God, everybody's right.
So wait, real quick, hold on one sec. When we like meet in person, can we? I'm gonna give you a hug, and I want you to smile like that in the picture, and I'm gonna smile like that too. And so that's how we're gonna smile.
Oh God, I mean,
you should though. You're a very nice looking woman. Like you have. I'm trying not to be like, oh look, he's hitting on her. I'm not trying to hit on her. But yeah, you've got really nice hair. You're very well dressed. You got great complexion. So I mean,
thank you. Yeah. Well, I mean, and that was the crazy thing too, because like I would, I mean, I wasn't for lack of dates or guys in my life or anything else, but and then I bought into this belief of, I remember reading this quote from Mel Gibson, and he was like, even the most beautiful woman in the world can look like dog on the camera. So I was like, all right, well, I'm just one of those people that looks like dog camera, right? And so, but you can see how I just totally made this groove, right? And then it became belief, and then it just became my mantra. And so I was in this very giant deep hole about, I can't do a video or photo because I'm super ugly and unphotogenic and nobody's going to look at that. Right. So, and then as you get up in your higher up executive levels, you'd be surprised how many people kind of tell you what you want to hear and, cuddle you around. Right. So nobody's going to, they're not going to call you out on your be like, Betsy, that's ridiculous. Right. I had never had anybody say to me, Betsy, just like, buck up and go have a bunch of photos taken of you. Like, this is stupid. You're going to be on camera, whatever. Nobody did that. And it was like, oh, okay, well, we'll find a photographer you're really comfortable with, and we'll do 5 sessions. And so that also, again, it just started laying down the groove harder and harder and harder. Right. And Brian Rose is like, I don't give a care what you think. You're going to put these 10 videos out, right? And for me, who, as you can tell, I mean, it's, performing is really important to me. And I was like, well, it's going to have to do those videos and get over it, but to have complete strangers then give you other feedback that was really positive, and to have that reinforced over an 8-week time period, I think was tremendous. Right. So, and that was for me, that was that, you had no problem with it. But there's people who have problems. They don't have a problem with the video. I have a lady who has no problem with doing videos, and all of a sudden now she's freaking out and she doesn't want to do a webinar because she thinks that her topics are boring.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I guess it's just, it's the circumstance of what's happening.
Exactly. So I had to spend a good 10 minutes yesterday and say, this topic, yes, it's very boring. It's really important, and most people want to hear about it. She was doing bookkeeping. I would like to hear about it. Right. I was like, I'll definitely go to your video. So everybody has their different thing. Right. And you probably can track back to something that you ended up believing in. And then, and who knows, I mean, I might have even, I think unconsciously that you look for negative reinforcement of that. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you something funny here. And it might tickle you pink. I don't know what it'll do, but so like I've made a lot of different friends in our team, specifically Team Billhorn.
Yeah.
And I'm friends with a lot of different guys, and so we've a lot of these guys we've talked, and it's so funny. It reminded me of high school, because there's like different conversations. It's like, oh yeah, so and so is like really hot. I think so and so has the hots for so and so. Yeah, you would, and we're guys. These are, I don't know what y'all girls have talked about, but this is the guys. And so one day I was talking to one of these individuals, and I talked to many of them. I'm not going to give out a name here.
No, please don't.
No, of course not. But they were like talking about like the different chicks that they thought were hot or sexy, and your name got thrown up in there.
No,
they said Betsy. Right now, he's probably watching this. He's like, that son of a bitch. How could he say that? I know he's not saying a name, but still, what if they could figure it out? What if they know it was me?
No, I have no.
Yeah.
Well, so
you got lumped in there.
Well, wow. Well, that makes me feel good.
Yeah, you were lumped in there.
I thought that it was sexy.
You were lumped in there.
But but this is a thing too. Then I think too, like, again, I'll just playback to the Wrestling Diaries, I think this is something that women have a big problem with, because there were ladies in our class, we'll just say it. There were some very attractive ladies in our class, right? There were definitely a couple of model beautiful women in the class. And I'm speaking objectively. And, but I know in one case, at least, I bet you if you were to tell her that, or ask her how she felt, about how she looked, I don't think that she would agree with you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's a self-esteem thing. I think a lot
So
of
now I'm just going to go through the list. I'm just going to go through the list on Messenger. I'm going to call every single female that was in our team.
And to everybody who was on the team watching this podcast, I'm sorry.
Oh,
no,
man.
and I'm like, it's an interesting dynamic, because as a coach, I'm not aware of those conversations, right? Because you're kind of sitting above, and it's not like a thing. And then
like
the
I
dynamic
said, we're like in
my
high
class,
school. That's what it was like. You're our teacher. We're in high school. We're passing notes,
and you're oblivious to the whole thing. Yes, or I didn't want to know. So
yeah, I'm just so glad that I came into this course.
Yeah,
single. or I'm not single. Not single is what I should say. Yeah, because I.
Well, I hate to tell you, I think that pretty much all the ladies in the class were taken. So.
Oh, well, good. That's good.
I don't think there were any single ladies in the class.
Hey, listen, but that didn't stop me in the past.
No,
No, you
never know. You never know. I don't know how many marriages from London Real Business Academy have probably happened. Who knows?
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
That would be a great statistic to right? Yeah.
They meet, they start a business, and then they get married.
And then they get married. Yeah.
And then
well, or
kids,
you know what? Hey, I never
badasses.
ended up doing the business, but I met my husband.
Right. Hey, there you go. You get something
exactly.
out of it.
Yeah.
So sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
What have you met Brian Rose in real life?
I
assume so, right? You have not.
No, I have not.
You didn't go to the graduation ceremony thing?
No. So what happened was my class hit, we literally graduated the week that they shut everything down. So typically how I guess it used to work is that, you'd come into your week 8 and, Brian would give the last keynote and, here you go, fly out of the nest. I'm so proud of y'all. And then you go to London that following weekend for your graduation. And so I had my plane tickets booked and everything, and I was all ready to hop on the plane on Thursday. And then, COVID was going on. This was at the end of March. And I think the UK and the US were the only countries that were open that, still. And then that weekend, boom, it was so I am actually probably going to go to the graduation. They had postponed it to September. So I'm hoping that's still going to happen. But I haven't met my own teammates yet. So, and I have not met Brian. So I've talked to Brian via Zoom and stuff, but I haven't met him in person. Yeah.
I was just going to ask you, what he was like and what he seems like, how he smells, what's his bank account information, his routing number.
I don't think he'd give that to me. I think there's a lot of people who probably, and that's the other interesting thing too, is I have talked to Brian on Zoom calls and stuff, and, Brian, he's a good guy, right? He's a good guy, he's a human being. But it is funny, I think, now that he's gotten much bigger, people get so starstruck with him. You know what I mean? And the hilarious thing is that if you watch, especially the movies that he did, right, especially Iron Mind, but if you watch some of the older videos of London Real, and I think even his IGTV, his vlogs, he talks very openly about, he's not a perfect human being, not by a long shot, right? And some of the things that he's even been struggling with, in the last 2 years. And so I find it kind of ironic that people are so starstruck and assign so much to him, even though he's out there saying, hey, I'm still out there struggling, man. I'm still a flawed human being, probably will be for the rest of my life, just like everybody else is, right? But people are looking at him going, oh, Brian. And I'm like, well, he's Brian, you know what I mean? So
I gotcha.
Yeah.
So why What made you want to get into doing all this stuff? You said you worked for tech companies for how many
Yeah.
years of your life?
25 years. So my entire,
25 years. You went to
yeah, my
school, you went
entire
to
career.
university and all that stuff for that stuff as well?
No. So I'm going to date myself, but I went to school. I went to a liberal arts school and I got a degree in English literature. So programming, like computer programming and stuff like that, people didn't learn that in school. They didn't have comp sci degrees at that time. I mean, it started, I think, probably I want to say maybe a little bit after I graduated, but you could get it as part of a math degree. And I was definitely not math major material. So, and my dad was in computers very early on. So he actually had programmed on one of the very first computers that they used to have the vacuum tubes with the switches. And he was a programmer all in the 60s and 70s. And so we always had computers in the house. And he worked for a company called Control Data, which is, at the time it was IBM, Control Data, and Texas Instruments had like the really huge big mainframe computers that, banks, insurance companies, and governments used. And so he was a programmer for them. So we had, some of the first PCs that came out, we had them in the house. So the net of that is I wanted to have nothing to do with computers and I did nothing to do with what my dad did, right? Because that was very, very uncool. And let me also go back to in the 80s and early 90s, being a computer person and being a geek was not a good thing. You wanted to be in sales or marketing, right? That was the cool shit. But this whole thing now where, like if I say I'm in tech now, everybody's like, ooh, right. But, in my 20s, that was, what are you doing? You know what I mean? You're weird, so when I got out of school, I kind of didn't know what I wanted to do. I mean, I would tell people I wanted to be a vice president of sales, which was hilarious considering how shy I was. But I went and worked for an insurance company, started out as a data entry clerk and paying claims. And they promoted me and said, oh, well, you can manage this little annuities group. And we had computer programs on a PC that the IT department really didn't give a rip about. And so I couldn't really get my job done. It was very frustrating. So I got kind of pissed off and I went to the bookstore and bought some books and cracked it in the computer and fixed my own shit. And instead of them firing me, I got hauled into the VP's office and he was like, well, congratulations, you're in the IT department where we can keep an eye on you. And we're going to pay for you to go to, Portland State University and take some computer science classes. And you can take the classes during work. And that's how I got in tech. And, the rest is history from there. And I found out I really liked it. So.
And I got to imagine that you were making some pretty decent money. So why would you want to walk away from that to do the things you're doing now?
Yeah, well, yeah. And so this was the interesting bit. So when I went to college, I was like, I either want to be a VP of sales or I want to be a surgeon. And I didn't do too hot in pre-med, mostly because I think I wasn't that good at math and science. And then I'm too shy, like cold calling. Like, I mean, when I graduated from college, like calling to order a pizza, I would have like sweat, and I'd be shaking on the phone. Yeah.
Wow.
No, this is true story.
That's
This is
wild.
true stories. Yeah. People who know me from back then definitely be able to validate that. And when I got into the IT department, yeah, I mean, I was making bank compared to what I would have made anywhere else. And originally I kind of got into it, one, because of the money. But then I, over time figured out what I liked and what I didn't like and, moved up in my career and then migrated over to products. So the product is more, kind of looking at the market, seeing where there's a need, figuring out a product that's going to fit that people are going to buy, and then, how to create that product. And you work collaboratively with a lot of people. So as you can tell, even though I like to talk and I'm very curious about what other people do and like, what is that? What are they doing? What is this? Right. So because I was like personable with people, even in my early days as being a coder, if somebody had a question about something wasn't working, they'd be like, we'll send Betsy over there to talk to them, right? So, because she'll talk to them, right? And nobody else wanted to. So that's kind of the progression. But I'm very good at coding, and I enjoy doing it. And I didn't know I really had that talent. So there you go.
Okay. Where did the whole horse thing come in?
So
you always like rode horses all your life?
Yeah, well, I rode horses for a little bit when I was in, junior high and high school. And then had a pretty bad accident. I got kicked in the face and shattered my eyebrow. And my parents were like, that's it, we're done. So it was one of those issues of, first you don't have money and you've got the time, then you have the money, but you don't have the time. And then, this is a common thing that happens. They call it rewriters. You come in back in like your 40s because now you've got the money and the time, and you pick up where you left off, usually somewhere in your teens or your early 20s. So, and that's what I did. So, yeah.
You got to teach me how to ride a horse someday.
Yeah.
or not. I mean, I just won't ride one. I'll just look at them.
Oh, I'm not a good. I don't teach, so I'm not a good teacher of writing.
Oh.
So
okay, well, never mind then. I don't want to hang out with you either.
Yeah. So I've had my own struggles with my writing, so I just don't feel qualified to teach anybody else how to write.
Do you go to like a lot of what are those the horse shows and the competition things they do?
No.
I don't know anything about that. What do they call that stuff? Esquarian? What's the name for the?
So there's just horse shows, but you talk about equestrian events.
I said
equestrian events. Yes. No.
Equestrian. Sorry, horse people. I don't know anything about it.
Well, it depends on who you're talking to, right? You just managed to offend probably everybody, but that's okay.
Okay. So, that's what I try to do here on the Wrestling Diaries is offend.
Right?
Offend everyone.
There we go. But no. So like competing and showing, I did when I was younger, when I was like 13. When I got back into it, I was like, I got into this thing called classical dressage, which it's a very niche-y kind of thing. It's getting more popular now. But when
Say that again, what's it called?
Classical dressage.
Dressage. At first, I thought you said massage. Yes. I was like, oh, you got into classical massage.
Classical massage, yeah.
What's like contemporary massage?
Modern massage, yes. So I mean, I could go into this for it would probably take a long time to explain, but the net of it is a classical dressage is usually characterized by there's a set of old dead guys, basically from like the 1500s on, that trained horses in a particular way, and they didn't have really competitions back then, and they did it more for the art of riding. And there's all this like spiritual, metaphysical stuff, and if you were noble and all this stuff, and I could go on for hours and hours about that. And the modern dressage kind of where people tend to delineate it, and there's a lot of debate. So this is like talking about like, whether or not you use a Windows versus, Mac. It's like that, it could get that nasty. But the modern dressage, kind of came out of the horse riding was introduced in the Olympics in the 20s, and military folks used to have competitions, in the cavalry, and so they would, they would do this thing called dressage, which is these different movements that the horse does in a very precise way. They would have jumping, right? So if you're out and you're riding your horse in the cavalry, you're jumping over stuff, right? So they'd have a jumping thing, and then they would have a cross country course where it was timed, and you would be going cross country through obstacles, right? And so that was kind of what ended up in the Olympics. And so when people talk about modern dressage, they're talking about people who are riding dressage kind of more in that cavalry competition type way, and then we compete, right? And competition is a very big thing for modern dressage riders. So if you can think about, one, and this is where it gets controversial, because, when you say modern, you're implying, well, okay, you guys aren't artistic, or you guys aren't, looking for the relationship with the horse and this, and you're always about competition. And I can assure you that a lot of people who do modern dressage are not that way, right? So that's the big difference between the two. That was pretty geeky.
No.
And I know this is Wrestling Diaries, not the geek out on horse stuff that nobody ever heard of Diaries.
She's such a nerd, and she wears glasses.
Yeah. and I like
That's
anime.
no.
Oh my god!
It's. I think it was very fascinating. I think it was very fascinating because I don't know this. I'm asking because I don't know, and I'm sure there's probably a lot of other people like, what is it? Like, what is that? So it's very educational.
Well, dressage is that thing when people are riding horses and it's all with the jackets and the white tights and the the long the big black boots that come up to the knees and it's all hoity-toity like that. It's not really like that, but there's a lot of tradition that comes from Europe, and you have to dress a certain way.
The next time you're on the show, I'm going to wear one of those outfits. I'm going to have the hat on. I'm going to have the little horse whip thing. Hi, we've had Betsy. This is her second episode of the Wrestling Diaries.
Yeah,
I'm just going to be dressed like this.
Show up in my show. Yes, we can both dress up in show clothes.
I can wear like assless chaps. Oh, that's for a cowboy. That's for a cowboy.
That's Western.
That's
Western. Yes, that's Western. And I don't think that your Western people would like that very much.
I feel like Matt would like it. Would you like for me to wear that?
I think Matt's going to put his eyes out right now.
he literally just went, whatever works, man. He said, I've seen you in worse. Whoa, wait, let's cut that out. Let's cut that part out. Oh man.
Oh my god.
So man, this has been really fun. Have you had fun?
Yeah. Yes, I have. Yes.
I can tell.
Yes.
I can tell. It's good. It makes me happy. Thank you so much for being on the show though. I really appreciate you doing this
and pleasure.
Putting yourself out there. So let me ask you this. This is kind of essentially the concept of the Wrestling Diaries is like, when you have a conversation with somebody, you kind of realize that especially if it's a really good conversation and it's over a good period of time, people kind of like, if they're open enough, they really start to tell you who they are, and you kind of get what they wrestle with, even without even asking. But towards the end of the show, I always get more specific, and I ask, like I'm about to ask you, Betsy Bilhorn, what do you right now? What are you specifically wrestling with, and how do you think you can beat it?
Okay. So I think I think it kind of goes. It's a confidence issue, honestly, and I know that's really shocking to hear. And I'm gonna open this up with I had a young woman who was in her 20s come up to me I was giving a talk about women in tech, and she comes up to me and she's like, "Man, you have oh my God, you're so inspiring, and and you just have it so together." And I'm thinking in my head, I do not have my shot. And so the thing is that what I've come to the realization is that it doesn't matter what age you're at. You just have different things that you get not confident about, or you get neurotic about. And right now, I think starting this company, I've had definitely a lot of things, a lot of roadblocks, a lot of challenges that I've had to get through. And, you get very excited, you got your shiny business plan, and, you're very confident about it. But as I'm going through, I'm constantly battling, like, is this, are people really going to buy this? Or, am I stupid to even do this? Or, and it's a lot of this stuff, that actually Brian Rose talked about in our keynote speeches every Tuesday. And the Business Accelerator is, you have a tendency, I have to be really careful not to compare myself with founders that have, $40 million companies right now, or are on the cover of, TechCrunch and these different magazines. And, they, go back to what my grandfather said, everybody had to start somewhere, right? So I'm wrestling kind of with this self-confidence of getting up every day and knowing at some point in the indeterminate future, right, that this is going to be successful, and having to believe that it's going to be successful, and really believing it, and getting every morning and just making little progress every day, right? It's a marathon, it's not a race. But yeah, I would say definitely it's yes, I can do this. I have the self-confidence to do this, and this will be successful.
Amen, ladies and gentlemen.
Deep. And it never ends, right? So let me just tell you, because I'm 52.
Wow, really?
Yes.
I thought you were in your, like 100%, no bullshit. I thought you were like in your early 40s. That's what I just assumed right out the gate.
Thank you. No. I'm old. You should have known that when I said
that's not old.
When I was talking to you earlier, and I'm like, yeah, there wasn't computer science great in college.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. yeah, like it just, I mean, you don't feel different. I mean, I don't feel different from when I was in my 20s. Um, and, I think just what I'm just learning, I thought, when I was in my 20s and 30s that, oh, when I get into my 50s, I'm going to be so confident and I'm going to have everything figured out. There are a lot of things that I do have figured out, right? So some of the struggles that you might have, or, when I talk to other young women who are in their 20s, I'm like, oh, thank God that's over with. I could care less about that stuff. That's easy for me. Right. But there are always new challenges that you end up having like throughout the rest of your life. And I think you just have to I've had to get comfortable with being uncomfortable pretty much all the time, you know? And it's really important too, because when, this is kind of the time where I'm watching a lot of people, they didn't accomplish what they wanted to accomplish, or, stuff's coming up, or they thought they were going to all have it figured out, and bam, life still keeps happening and they just give up. Right. And that's deadly, right? Because that's when you start, seeing people like do that very fast decline. Yeah.
Regardless of whether your goals go or you meet the quota or whatever, I mean, it matters, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that you keep going, right? Because
exactly.
To quit and to stop, that is the ultimate failure in life.
Yes.
Like ultimately, regardless of what happens. Like if it didn't work, then okay, then just keep going and find out why it didn't work, and just keep getting better. But the minute you quit and turn away and walk the other way, then you have legitimately failed now. And I only know this because I'm speaking from experience. There's so many things that I've done in life, and I got to a certain point, and things, they didn't taste as sweet as I thought they were going to. I didn't reap the benefits I was wanting. And I was like, oh well, then I guess I'm a loser. I failed. I suck. This isn't for me. Walking away, and it's a terrible mentality. And I feel like that's one of the reasons why I haven't proceeded to where I want to be, because of that. And I've slowly but surely have been like reevaluating and rewiring all the circuitry and the old noggin here about pressing on. And I feel like that's a very, very important thing that people need to know when they're trying to do anything in life.
Yeah, and it's something that everybody wrestles with, right? It's something that I'm wrestling with, because you have those roadblocks every single day. Right. For as many people who think, oh, digiPonies is really cool, I get people who are like, well, it's COVID. Like, how are you going to do that? You're going to run out of money. Oh my God, you need to get a job. Right. And then the little demon starts going in your head, like, ooh, maybe I do need to get a job. You know what I mean? Like, maybe I am going to fail. Yeah. And, it's just getting up every day, and I make a little bit of progress, and I also just take like that one, hey, I loved your show, or that one, hey, that's really cool, digiPonies. And that's enough to keep me going, So, yeah.
There's a book that I had just finished reading a couple weeks ago called The Gifts of Imperfection, written by Brené Brown. Mm-hmm. And in there's a passage where she says, sometimes like we put such a high standard on our goals and the things that we're trying to do. And a lot of people that are perfectionists mostly, if you get to a certain level and things aren't what you wanted or what you thought or what you had envisioned, like sometimes you have to realize, and then you have to think like, oh, well, it's because I didn't do enough or I didn't work enough. And maybe you didn't. But she said that sometimes you also have to look at it from the perspective of sometimes just actually showing up is enough. And you have to be able to hang your hat on that and to help build your own confidence. And I read that passage and I was like, that's a very good point, because I am a person who, even if I'm busting my butt trying to do something, and then I even if I am reaping the benefits, but I don't like actually see it enough, then I'll be like, oh, maybe I haven't been working hard enough. And then I start like over analyzing everything I've done. I'm like, oh, I didn't do this enough. And then when I read that passage, I started feeling a little bit better about that concept, because I was like, okay. She said, sometimes just showing up is enough. And you can like hang your hat on that as progress, that you're moving forward.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't show up. I mean, how many people, and I'm not doing an ad for London Real, but how many people have watched Brian Rose? How many people have, watched that he offers this class? And it's $3,000. And I know for a lot of people that's a lot of money, but it's a hell of a lot cheaper than, obscene amounts of money that I've seen people put into failed businesses, right? And, and then you show up, right? And for some people, that's the biggest thing. I mean, we had a person in our team that he had huge, huge, huge challenges in his life. I mean, he even said on his webinar that, he had tried to commit suicide 5 different times in his life, right? For him to show up to the class was a massive act of courage, right? and then to show up every week and do the assignments and show up and do his webinar. And I was on his webinar and his first one, and I was the only one on there, and he was like devastated. And I was just like, give it 5 minutes, right? And a bunch of people started to show up, including his non-classmates, and he rocked this webinar. I mean, he far and away was one of the best webinars that I had seen. But he showed up, right? And he had every reason to pull the cord because I was the only one there. And if he had like ditched in that first 5 minutes, he would have never done the webinar. He would have never done an amazing webinar, and he wouldn't have sold 5 classes out of that webinar.
That is fantastic. Right? I'd love to hear
that.
That's a great story.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a really great story. Yeah. I was super emotional at the end of the webinar, but
I can imagine,
because every week I was like, is this person going to make it? But yeah, you're totally right. And it's whether or not you choose to be successful in it or not, whether or not it ends up being a success, it doesn't matter. Right. So some people would look at my coming out of the London Real course as a failure because I didn't do a digital course, right? Well, I did do one and it failed utterly, but I look at it as a success because when I showed up, I learned a whole hell of a lot of stuff. I'm a completely changed person at the end of the 8 weeks in a lot of ways. And I got some very valuable lessons out of it, right? And it will only help me going forward, right? So to me, it is absolutely not a write-off, but I could have said halfway through, this is bullshit, and left, right? So showing up is super important.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Woo. Hell yeah. Betsy Bilhorn, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to tell you right now, I see absolutely why Brian Rose or Christina or the powers that be made you a team leader. Because you are very, very smart. But I think a lot of it has to do with it because of your confidence and how you were so nervous and scared, but you broke through that adversity. Like you had a breakthrough. And now you're like this, like you're talkative, you're making jokes, you're laughing, you're having a good time. And I see nothing but confidence when I talk to you. And I feel like they saw that too. They saw you transitioning, and that's powerful. They saw you go from nerdy Peter Parker to Spider-Man. You know what I mean? And so I feel like that's why they chose you, and I feel like they chose well. And I'm glad that I got to meet you and we connected and all this stuff. So go ahead and plug in your business. Tell people how they can get the digiPonies thing. Tell them about your podcast and how they can find you.
Yeah, so I do have my my YouTube show, Under The Forelock, and it's interesting people doing interesting things with horses. But one of the things I will say about that is we end up talking about life, right? Because a lot of what you do with horses, you have to really have your together, or at least try to get it together. And so we talk a lot about breathing and being centered and meditation and all this kind of stuff. So I've had a lot of people actually who watch the show who are non-horse people who get a lot out of it. So that's Under The Forelock on YouTube, and please go ahead and subscribe. digiPonies, I'm on Instagram as digi.pony or digiPonies on Facebook. But right now it's promoting the show. I will have some announcements coming out in the future for some beta testing for the app. So if you want to be, in the loop on that, just go ahead and like my digiPonies page. So that's probably the best way. Woo. So not quite ready. So I'll have to come back on, I think, in the winter time.
Yes.
Have someone to talk about with the app.
So y'all go check that stuff out right now. Hey,
go see the show.
Ready?
There you
Pound
go.
it. Boom. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Betsy Bilhorn. Check out her stuff. Also, check out our stuff, the Wrestling Diaries on YouTube, on the audio podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcast and a plethora of other ones. It's super awesome. Also, if you want to do your own podcast and you don't have to have like a cool studio like this, you could just do it from your own home with either your phone or your laptop. Go to anchorfm.com. Super duper awesome. And I hope you enjoyed the show today. I had a lot of fun. Thank you so much, Betsy, for being on, and we'll see you next time. Tell me, what do you wrestle with and how can you beat it? One love.